Regular board meeting for March 25th. The time is now 6:35. If you'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Gregg,
Here.
Holston,
Present.
Horn,
Here.
Pop. Absent.
Mr. Pop is fishing in Alabama this week.
Bam. Trustee Racick
Present.
and Gonzalez.
Here.
I believe we have Pastor DeVries from Monee Free Methodist. If you would please so kindly provide the invocation.
Yes, would you pray with me? Our Heavenly Father, we come to you in our time of need for grace and truth. Lord, we ask you to search our hearts, know our thoughts. Lord, see if there's any offensive way in us and lead us in your way everlasting. Lord, we just ask for wisdom. Your word says that if we lack it, we can ask you who gives generously without finding fault. So we pray, Lord, for this proceedings that are going to be before us, that you would give all wisdom, that we make wise choices that would honor you and better our community. Lord, we just ask for, Lord, just your blessing to reside on this community all the more. On our schools, that you would keep them safe, and you would bless the teachers and the families that are part of them, and our law enforcement and fire department, watch over them, keep them safe. Lord, we just pray you would unify our community, Lord Jesus, that you would help us to love you first and foremost, and Lord, help each other to love their neighbor as themselves, as you've called us to do. So Lord, thank you for this time and your many blessings to us. We realize that all of them come from you, the Father of lights. And so we give you praise and thanks tonight in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
At this time, we'll go to open the public agenda items only. If you would come to the podium, give your name and address, and
Larry Schry, 5123 Fairgrounds Court. I've had the opportunity to review the working proposal of the ordinance for landlord licensing, and I looked at it before I left the house to review it again, and almost every page on the first part of it is about property maintenance, not crime-free ordinance. The problem I'm having with this is because these ordinances are already on the books, they're already enforced, and what you're trying to do here with this ordinance is take a select minority group of people and sign the property maintenance ordinances when this is applicable to everybody that owns a building in this town, including homeowners. Number two, you also have an introduction of pest control. As being a landlord for 17 years, I have not had one problem with any pest anywhere in any of my buildings. Not to mention now, I'm going to be having to put out money at a cost, and I did my due diligence, of $400 to $600 a year annually for this to be done. Also, this is introducing chemicals now into a building that I could be at high risk for to affect animals, humans. So with this ordinance, with that cost of $400 to $600, with the property tax increase that we just got put on from $250 to $300, and the licensing fee, will cost me approximately $1,000 more a year per entity. How do I pass that on to tenants? You know, who's not going to survive across the board because it is residential, or it's got to be passed on to everybody. The cheese guy, Studio 50, the pet store, and the list goes on and on. It will not just sit just at that one spot. My property taxes went up $600 last year on that one building alone. So over a 2-year period of time, I'm going to be into $1,600 in property taxes and fees. How do you initiate and how do you push that forward to tenants? What's going to happen? They will fail. because I have to keep raising the rates. There is a point in time where your escrow far exceeds your principal, and you have a median income of a one-bedroom apartment of $500, you gotta keep raising that, and raising until you cannot get nobody in no more. That's what happens. Your escrow grows up because of property taxes. Not just your escrow, but the bank also wants 20% cushion on top of that. So there's more fees. You know, I am a businessman. I'm a self-employed painting contractor for 35 years. And I also was that guy that owned the ice cream shop. And that closed only because the fees kept getting higher and higher, and the property tax kept getting higher. Foot traffic was not there. I see what's happening down here. We're slowly taxing the death and fees out of everybody in this town. When's it gonna stop? Does anybody have any questions for me? Because I'm not gonna be able to interject while this is going on.
Let me address this. I do appreciate your input there. We're not gonna call for a vote tonight, just to.
Well, I understood that, right.
Right, so we're not gonna call for a vote. This is going to be merely a status update regarding this. I believe there's actually two aspects of what's going on here. Based on the legal counsel, they've indicated there's actually two separate ordinances that will ultimately take place. One is the landlord licensing, and one is the, for lack of a better way to describe it, a nuisance ordinance. And that'll be more the combination of those creates a crime-free scenario there between the two of those. Both of those will be presented at a time in which, I'm not sure at the next meeting or the one after that. This is not even in code format.
Right.
So it's not like this could even be legally approved for tonight, other than just to have some talking points. So we're not gonna vote on it tonight. This is really a status update, as one of the trustees has been working very diligently to put all this together. And as I indicated before this would actually go to a vote, it would also go for public review because of the concern in that.
You seen we just lost docks, okay?
Right.
There, you look at the TIF district down Route 50. 44% of my tax bill went to TIF. Down Route 50 there, on just that one entity alone. When I first purchased that building, that one building, my property taxes were $1,800. With this new tax increase, and plus the school's tax increase because they're so short, this time next year I will be well over $9,000 on that entity. So when does it stop? When does the fee stop?
Which property are you referring to?
That's the one where the pet store is. You think about the building that's there, justify $9,000 and then putting more fees, more services on here. How do you pass it on to the tenants? You don't. They will find somewhere. This is a slow death that's happening, slow suicide down there.
Okay.
And one more thing, this is a case in point. 3 years in a row here, Doc's Drugs went up $5,500 a year in taxes. They were at one point in 2010 at 38,000. They're up to 56,000 in 13. That makes a huge statement there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for agenda items only? Okay. At that point, we'll close the open to the public section and we'll go on to the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that.
Second.
Horn and Razor. Roll call, please.
Trustee Holston,
Yes.
Horn,
Yes.
Raisik,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
and Gray.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Clerk.
No report, Your Honor.
Sorry. Early voting is still going on right now, though, I believe, is that correct?
That is correct. Would you vote?
I will. Okay. Anyhow, under the mayor's agenda, I have a recommendation for an appointment to Police Commission. As you know, the Police Commission has had a vacancy, I believe since about November. And they're in the process now of they're at a crucial point where they need to be fully engaged for the process of reviewing the list that's being formed. without that, we can't actually interview, we can't actually do any process for the potential of hiring any new full-time employees in that department. My recommendation for that is Brad Bohannick, and I'm looking for a favorable motion to accept Brad for the position of police commissioner. He would be one of 3 members of the police commission.
Anything on his qualifications?
What's his background?
Conscientious member of the community.
Finance director for football, I think.
Yeah, he's very involved in football and various other sporting programs in the
Very
area.
involved with the community. I'll entertain that motion.
You'll make that motion?
Mhm.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, Raisik and Holston. Roll call, please.
Trustee Horn,
Yes.
Grayson,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Gray,
No.
Holston.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I believe, Chief, we could just have him sworn in. I don't think he's here today, is he? I know he had another appointment he was working on. He'll just be sworn in at the next police commission meeting. Okay. Also, prepared for you tonight is a copy, Michelle may have one. We haven't done it yet, and previously, we have provided for you a state of the village, and you'll be glad that my voice is not what it ought to be tonight, so don't expect me to read it. This is merely a summary of accomplishments in the last 2 years. I think each of the trustees sitting here should be very pleased with the success that we've had as a team. And I just want to present this to you all. For members of the public, we have some sitting right here. Michelle, if you want to, just anybody who wants one, just raise your hand or give one to you before you leave. And it will be online as well. We've had a pretty good 2 years, and I'd like to do this annually. Last year, we just had so much going on, we didn't get around to it. So, again, I think everyone here should be very pleased with the accomplishments we've achieved as a team. So. With nothing else under my agenda, I'm going to go into the administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I want to update the board. A few months ago, Brian Can,
Or something.
thank you. A few months ago, Brian Can met with myself and with our Public Works Superintendent and presented a plan to bring a memorial, Veterans Memorial, to the village property in front of the village hall. If you remember, prior to that, he had also spoke before the village board and proposed the idea to the board. We had met with Mr. Can on a few occasions, and also his landscaper, and he presented the plans to the superintendent and myself. And in the board packet, if you'll look, he's included the proposal with the invoice, what the amount would be, and also the proposed plan with the patio and with the landscaping and the snow and so forth. And at this point, I'm going to ask Mr. Candace if he wants to add. Do you want to add anything else?
Thank you, Ruben. Trustees, Mr. Mayor. I know we discussed the opportunity perhaps of putting a more grandiose memorial where the tree came down. However, one very important thing that I overlooked as commander, there were some fine young men who put that memorial out there who just got out of a bad war, and I think would be remiss if we forgot about that effort that they put out there. We would like to enhance the incumbent memorial with the plans that I have submitted. I think we'll do a very good job with it. It'll be something the village can be proud of. as well as our Legion post. And later on down the road, if there is a requirement for a greater, a more grandiose memorial that might be included, the firemen of our village and the police and all the people who put together all the packages that keep us safe, that might be a possibility. I know Beecher started out with a small memorial, and they made it a very nice one later on down the road in the park area. Also, Mantino has two different memorials. One that was the little airplane as you come into Mantino, and now they have another one in their Lambrecht Park area, which is pretty much the same thing that we're going to be doing here. I hope that the trustees and the mayor will agree with our presentation. We'd like to get started and do something on Memorial Day to dedicate it, and to the men who put the original memorial there in the first place, and there again on Memorial Day to honor our veterans.
So, Mr. Can, this would be something that would be primarily, it'd be visible from the street, but when you're having your ceremonies that you do here periodically, it'd be suited for that as well, because that'll be the backdrop for that, as you normally do out here in the entranceway.
Yes, sir.
Brian, how do you expect to fund this? What are you looking for?
Right now, we have $5,000 funding right now, donated by our Legion Post mostly, and myself and my wife have donated $1,000 to the fund. We have had several business people and residents voice their opinion about it, and they would like to help as well. The budget that we have set for this thing is around $10,000, so we're basically halfway there. And that's pretty much it as far as the fundraising efforts would be concerned.
I'm sorry, you're saying 10,000, Brian, because we have 8,000, so it's 10,000?
10,000 is what we like to have a total.
Okay. And for the gentleman that you already are honoring for doing this originally, would you have them as the first names up there in honor of, or as far as helping with the original setup? Or
I had the
it's a
honor.
minor thing, which is...
Yeah, I had the honor of, I joined the American Legion Post in 1966 when I was mustered out, and was able to meet many of the young men who were now in their 40s, the ones that built this memorial.
Right.
Most of them are gone now.
Okay, that's
As far as the names of the people who put it up there, yes, that's a nice thought, and I can go back in our archives and try to find out who the people were that helped to donate at that particular point in time. But I could investigate into that.
It's not a major thing, but again, it would be nice to see their names as the original, the ones that set this up in memory of, and then you go from there.
Yes, very good thought.
Phase 2.
That could be a possibility there also.
So Brian, let me ask you this, so you've got how much race thus far?
We have 5,000 so far.
5,000 race thus far. Are you looking for the village to participate in the cost of this?
I don't know what the agreement was between the village of Monee when they put it out there in the first place. I don't know if the village participated at that time.
I know you guys provide us our flags for that though, is that?
Yes, we provide the flags. We take care of the flags. That's our responsibility.
Right. I think this is great. I think we all feel the same as far as wanting to honor those that have served and fought for our freedoms. I'm not sure of a dollar amount specifically because we haven't had a chance to really review all this prior to this. But you anticipate being able to, if you're wanting to get this operational as soon as possible, are you anticipating, if you have 5,000 raised so far, are you anticipating, you said you have a few businesses and such that would like to contribute to this and have not?
All the labor from the landscaper will be donated. We have a cement contractor who is donating the labor and the cement. We will be basically buying the flag poles, the landscaping itself, paver bricks, most of the materials, but most.
But I would be shocked if you can't go to Home Depot and get the paper bricks for nothing.
That's a possibility too. The landscaper's aware of that.
Sure.
I'll go with you. I mean, I'd be shocked, but I'm with you. I mean, again, my father was a Korean War veteran, so we all have parents, family members who are veterans, and the amount of money you're looking at here to make this up is far less than other things we're gonna talk about tonight.
Sure.
I would be in favor of what I don't know how we do this, but to guarantee them the balance if they can't raise it, but I have a suspicion you can raise it easily by just public awareness. But I think we ought to get started on it. You want it done by Memorial Day.
Should make the first.
Or you want groundbreaking on Memorial Day, or?
We want to start as soon as possible when the weather gives us the opportunity.
So I would entertain it, based on the fact that I know where our finances are and Daryl's on around here somewhere.
Back to
You
the
still
figures,
have-
yes.
I know he'd attest to our financial strength in this area. Brian, I would think that, as trustee Olson and others have indicated, you should be able to raise more money if need be, but we'd like to see this implemented as well, I believe. So I would entertain a motion to approve up to $5,000 for the balance of what they're not able to raise on their own. So let everybody contribute as they want to be a part of that, because a lot of people will want to be a
Yes,
part
they
of
do.
it.
A lot of people want to be a part of it.
So the balance of that, not to exceed $5,000, is what I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay.
We'll third and we'll fourth and.
That's fine. So Horn and Holston, and then roll call, please.
Trustee Racick,
Yes.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Holston,
Yes.
and Horn.
Yes.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, trustees. Rubens, thank you.
The next item on the agenda is Hudson Energy. A few weeks ago, we presented to the board cost analysis that Hudson Energy had supplied for the village. Our natural gas bill, they did an analysis for 1 year previous. In that analysis, we're able to show us potential cost savings of approximately $2,200. So we would ask for the board's consideration to approve moving forward with an agreement, contracted agreement with Hudson Energy for our natural gas supply.
And that was the recommendation before, and you want to give the board opportunity at the last meeting
To review the
interact.
contract.
It's fine. Did you have any objections during the last 2 weeks from the board or anything else?
We talked about it last.
Okay, all right. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Holston and Raisik. Roll call, please.
Trustee Racick,
Yes.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Holston,
Yes.
and Horn.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next is, I had on the agenda to discuss an aqua negotiations that are currently underway. I can give you an update. We are progressing, and I'm hoping by the next board meeting, I'll be able to provide the board with an agreement to review for approval. Next is a presentation by Wolverine Pipeline, and Mr. Edwin Peters from Wolverine will be doing a presentation.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
My name is Edwin Peters, I'm from Monee Pipeline. I'm not going to take too much of your time here. I came in to talk to Ruben and Dave the other day about a couple of projects we have going on. So I just wanted to come in, give you a little information about who we are, what we do, and what we have going on in the village here. Monee Pipeline, we're a small company. We're incorporated in 1952, roughly somewhere between 65 and 70 employees at any given time across 3 states. We don't own the product. We're like UPS or FedEx. We connect the refineries, Joliet here at ExxonMobil, and mainly BP Whiting. And we transport product up into northern Indiana and Michigan. We have roughly 650 miles of active pipeline, transport approximately 300,000 barrels of refined product a day. Majority of it is diesel fuel. I think we We supply about 35% of Michigan's diesel fuel. Here's a map of the entire system. The main hub or gathering hub there is in Hammond, Indiana. We pump, like I said, up northern Indiana. We have a branch that goes up to Ferrisburg, Michigan, another branch that feeds Lansing, and then up to Bay City. Here we are through the village. On the left there, we come across just behind the yards there on Lakeway, and then down to going east to west on the southern part of the village. And that is an 18-inch line. Basically, safety is our top priority. We operate with the public's trust. We're extensively regulated. DOT, PHMSA, EPA, OSHA, Coast Guard, Corps of Engineers. There's all kinds of technical standards that we have to abide by. 2001 DOT implemented an integrity management program, which has really increased the safety of pipelines as well. You know, we're just here basically to build awareness. The more folks are informed, the safer we'll all be and we can operate. We have these types of meetings, face-to-face meetings, community events. We do our annual mailer. If any of you live on any right-of-way pipeline, there's tons of them out here. You've probably been inundated with mailers, brochures, their 1-800 emergency numbers and everything. Actually about to do another one here just in a few weeks. We have state safety program that abide by one call. I'm going to talk about that here a little bit more. Environmental, the fire marshals for our tanks. We have to cooperate with all the road projects. Accident prevention strategies. Our number one goal is to keep the product in the pipe. And we do this by kind of a myriad of different ways. I get the question all the time, what's the life of the pipeline? And if you do these things here and do them properly, the life of the pipe is infinite. It has doesn't have to be replaced. Basically, the number one cause of damage is third-party damage. Someone out there with a backhoe gets into the line. Corrosion prevention, we run a cathodic protection system across the line. It's a electric current. It causes ground beds to rust out instead of the pipe. Smart pigging, that's kind of a picture of one right there. We run an inline inspection tool. We run that inside the line with the product. It's actually really neat. It can pick up cracks, dents, metal loss, really anything in the line. They do confirmation digs when they do get an anomaly, and they go out there and dig up the pipe, and literally there's things you can't even see, and they're like right on it. It's like so accurate. It's pretty amazing. We have a control center. It's out of Portage, Michigan, and they control the flow of everything. And it's 24/7 operation. Right-of-way maintenance. I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit as well. Constantly doing equipment maintenance, constantly bringing, as new technology emerges, we're constantly using the latest and greatest technology. They had a valve project actually on this line the year before last where they brought all the valves above grade and automated them. And our employees are constantly going through all types of qualifications and trainings. Emergency preparedness, we have a comprehensive emergency response plan. We do an annual spill drill where we get all the emergency responders together and we replicate a worst case scenario. We go out and pull boom. We implement the Coast Guard system, their incident command system. So it's basically just to kind of get everybody prepared in case there ever was an incident. So far we've been pretty fortunate as a company as far as our leaks and things like that. A one-call program, I'm sure everyone has heard of 811. It's an FCC sanctioned number that it kind of eliminates the need for each state to have their own one-call program. You just dial 811 from anywhere in the country. If you're going to dig, a couple of days before you dig, all the utilities will come out and mark their lines. It's a free service. I don't know why you wouldn't call. A lot of people think they know where the line is. Like I said, it's free. If you mess up, there could be cost to life, limb, property, utility outage, and possible fines. Here's some examples of where people didn't properly use the system. That upper left was up in just south of Grand Haven in Michigan. Operator there was doing some excavation. Our inspector was there. The guy said he was going to knock off for the day. Our inspector left. The guy thought he knew where the line was and got into it. That's a prime example of, just because you see the pipeline markers out there, it's not exactly where the pipeline is. You can never tell how deep it is, what angle it's at, or what have you. That lower left, I'm not going to name the utility company, but they decided to put a power pole over the top of our line. Just luckily it just danged it up like that. It was interesting, our damage prevention specialist was out there and said, it looks kind of close to our line, and sure enough, and the funny thing is, the utility company sent us a bill for moving the pole. So then we sent them the bill for our repair for the pipeline. They were like, well, never mind. Bottom right, farmer decided we needed a bend in our pipe. He was doing some deep chisel plowing, and there's some backhoe damage in the upper right. And like I said, that you can never tell how deep it is, where it is. It's just call 811. We'll come out and mark it for you. Right of way, just a little bit about right of way. Strip of land. I've seen them anywhere from the width of the pipe up in some of the refineries to up to 100 feet. Typically, if there's one line, it's 50 to 60, 6 feet or so. Two lines, it's somewhere around 75 feet. And I'm going to talk a little bit about right-of-way clearing here in a second as well. Where we are required by PHMSA to visually inspect our line at least 26 times a year with no period exceeding 3 weeks. Now, we have 650 miles of active line, but we actually have about 1,200 miles of right-of-way. So the only way to feasibly do this is from the air. So we use an airplane that flies the line, and he's looking for any signs of leak, vegetation, discoloration, any types of excavation, building, construction, anything that would be a potential risk to the line. At river crossings, signs of washouts, just a whole myriad of things he's looking for. So the right-of-way needs to be clear. Also, in November 2010, there was a PIPA report that came out. It's called, it stands for Pipeline Reform Planning Alliance. And it was a study that was done by PHMSA, and it basically is a document that lists industry recommended practices. I've heard some pipeline companies say it's the law, but it's technically not the law. It's industry recommended practice, but you can potentially see the problem if we didn't follow them, the liability there. And that report talked about how the tree roots can cause havoc to the pipeline, and how it can primarily cause problems with the coating. These pipes are coated, and which could potentially be a point for corrosion. They've also seen where lightning conducts down to the pipeline, which is not good. And they've seen where the tree roots get around the pipe, and the storm will come and knock the tree over and uproot the pipe. So as a result of that, this report that came out in 2010, pretty much all the pipelines in the industry are going out and reclaiming their right-of-ways, clearing trees. So that is actually what we're doing as well. And I'll talk about that in a second. But we easement agreement, people always ask me, is it some type of lease? What is it? We don't actually own the right-of-way. Like, people ask us, can we camp on it or hunt on it, whatever. I'm like, well, you need to ask the landowner. I can't, authorize you to do that. So it's an agreement between us and the landowner that basically gives us the right to lay, maintain, replace the pipe It's a perpetual right, doesn't matter how many times the property conveys out, the easement remains. Here's some poorly maintained right-of-way. And here is some right-of-way the way it should look. Ideally, you should be able to stand at a right-of-way marker and look either way in either direction and see the next right-of-way marker. So this is what we're trying to achieve, and this is one of the reasons why I came in and talked to Ruben and Dave the other day. We're doing a right-of-way reclamation project on this line from Joliet to Hammond, and we're basically going through, we're clearing out, all of the trees. Like I said, most of our right-of-way is 50, 60 feet or so we'll be clearing. Typically, we maintain about 50 feet. We'll locate the line, measure out 25 feet either side. Anything that has a mature height of less than 5 feet can stay in the right-of-way, like shrubs and I don't know what type of trees, maybe a dwarf fruit tree or something could stay in the right-of-way. But anything else, we'll clear out. Also, in conjunction with that, we've seen over the years, and I know it's kind of a catch-22. We've always, as a company, I think in the industry, we've been really nice as far as letting folks do what they want with their property. And it kind of bites us in the butt. In 2008, when we came out and cleared, and it was primarily so the pilot could see. And if people said, I have this 100-year-old tree, we understood that and we left it alone. But since this PIPA report has come out, we're going out and basically measuring 25 feet and clearing what's out there. And also, folks have built up sheds and swimming pools and whatever else you can think of out on the right-of-way. So we have another project where we're coming through, we actually surveyed this line, and they noted all the encroachments. So we're going out and addressing things like sheds and swimming pools and whatnot. Typically, if somebody has, it just depends on case-by-case basis. If you have a shed that's like, kind of on the edge of the right-of-way or whatever, we'll work with you and we're trying to get folks to sign an encroachment agreement, which basically says that if we ever had to go out and dig up our line and get to it, that if we cause damage to whatever you have out there, we may not be responsible for it. If it's a safety issue, yeah, we're not going to leave it there. And we've also found that, there's garages, there's all kinds of things out there. Things like that, and if we know about them and don't do anything with them, we could potentially lose our surface rights to get to our pipe. Spend tons of money trying to reacquire easements and all kinds of things in the future. So that's another effort we have going on with the right-of-way reclamation is management of the encroachments on the line. That's primarily it. We did a tool run, I think in 2013, and did whatever confirmation digs and repairs they need to do. We've got a project where there's some delamination of the coating in different places where there's bends. I don't think any of those locations affect this village. So we've got some repairs there, but that's primarily what we have going on. Just in summary, the first slide showed 300,000 barrels a day of product. There's really no safer, most economical way to transport that. I know you've seen in the news all the tanker accidents and trucker tanker accidents and things like that. There's just, there's no way you could transport that amount of product any other way. Statistics are showing that releases per 1,000 miles are down. And here's some websites here that are pretty neat that show not just our pipeline, but that NP National Pipeline Mapping System shows all the pipelines in your area. It's kind of clunky, not totally accurate. I think they kind of did that on purpose because of the Homeland Security type stuff, but it's out there. It's pretty neat. We're just here. Our motto is to protect people, the environment, and property, and be a good neighbor to the community. That's it. It's about getting information. Any questions?
And for the property owners, how would they know when they're purchasing land or something like that? Would it show up on the title search when they're doing all that? Would that show up for them there? How would you, because people may wonder, do I have a pipeline in my yard, and they don't know it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I get this all the time, especially if you have like a subdivision. Our pipeline markers are out there, and typically it's at road crossings, and there may be a big tract, there may be a pipeline marker at a road here, and then a mile away at a road here, and someone comes and develops it. And landowners call me all the time, especially when they go out to do something, and our pilot flies over, and we send our people out, and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know a pipeline was here. The thing is that, and I'm not exactly sure how it is in Illinois, but I know Michigan, we have the Marketable Title Act, and it's basically if you do a title search and go back 40 years and come forward in that chain, our easements aren't going to show up because the pipeline was put in like 1953. Now you have that kind of generic, what does it say, this deed is subject to any easements, covenants, restrictions of record. That kind of is supposed to bring it along through the chain. In some cases, it's really, up to the buyer and his realtor, and
Would it show up at least on a plat survey though?
it should, but I've seen it where the developer has issued plats and it's not on there. And I understand people's.
So if somebody's buying a property, they should call Julie just to make sure.
It's not a bad idea. Or at least, kind of do your due diligence, maybe ask around, ask the neighbors, that's one reason why we do these presentations, so, the municipalities would have a good idea. A lot of the municipalities are putting, they have GIS systems, and they're working with us more in, if someone does want to put up a shed or whatever, and they need a building permit, and they'll say, oh, wait a minute, there's a pipeline here, call over, we really appreciate that, and I get those calls too, people being proactive, and say, hey, I think about buying this house. Even if, I know there's a line here, how does that impact me? What can I do? That's good stuff.
I know the village does have a map for any of the residents that are interested. It's a pretty robust map, pretty big size actually, it's in our conference room. But even that map, we found out after it had been printed that there was a pipeline that was not even on that map, and it listed, we thought it listed all the pipelines, but there was one missing. So, Trustee Olson.
I was just going to say that when my wife and I went to add our patio on our driveway last year, that the village inspector then asked us to make sure we got Julie out, and that was part of the process, which I think is a very good idea. So in most cases, more recently, if you're permitting, that's another reason to use the permitting process the village has, is to make sure that we go through the process of having Julie come out and double check the mark everything where it is. So if people do that, in most cases, I think we're really in pretty good shape. Trees are a little bit of a different situation, but again, I wouldn't plant a tree without calling Julie myself either.
Any other trustees?
One question, can you go back to the website page, because we know that there's folks here that are interested in, obviously they live there. It's on the bottom there, it's npms.phmsa, the actual dot, and then the letter DOT.org. I know it's kind of hard to see for people who are sitting behind you.
That's 40 HP.
Yeah.
That would be what we would put on the village webpage too.
And you mentioned earlier in your presentation that you'll be sending out a mailing to residents. What's going to be contained in that mailing?
Are we talking about the annual mailing, or?
You said one's coming out in the next 3 weeks or so to
Yeah.
residents.
Yeah. Actually, there's a couple of mailings coming out. There's going to be a mailing specifically with regard to the right-of-way reclamation that will go to all the folks online. And there's also going to be the annual mailing that I normally do in December. I'm actually moving that to the spring just because we did a study that look at the effectiveness, and we found that, or our rationale is that in the spring, the farmers and folks are getting ready to, contractors are gearing up to do their work, so we just did one in December, and we're gonna do another annual mailing, in a few weeks, and what it contains is basically our brochure.
Mervin, while he's looking at that, can we make sure we get a copy of the slideshow? We'll just put that.
And just while you're looking for that, Edwin, some of our residents have already began receiving that letter, that right-of-way letter that announcing reclamation across. Yeah, I think Daryl's one of them. So it is going out.
I don't have any pamphlets, but anyway,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
sorry. Yeah, we have some pamphlets made up for different stakeholders, emergency responders, the residents, and contractors. So there'll be a safety brochure.
My question for you is the mapping that we're paying for. Will that include the
Yes.
pipelines running through
Yes.
people's yards and so forth?
And as he indicated regarding homeland-related things, none of our utility information or pipelines and all that sort of thing will necessarily be publicly visible.
But it will on our mapping.
On our stuff, for our purposes, we'll have it. Some of that won't necessarily be public.
Won't be public knowledge.
Just because of those, we don't want to be the crosshairs of somebody's terrorist attack.
And you said Wolverine has 650 miles of stuff that you maintain. Where is the origin and where's it going to?
Yeah, it was,
Sorry, I always missed the first
Oh,
one.
that's right. There you go.
the main refineries there are ExxonMobil and Joliet, and then BP Whiting. And our main hub is there in Hammond, and that's kind of that blow-up picture there that shows all the feeder lines coming in. Then it gets pumped across northern Indiana up into Michigan, and then we got a branch that goes up to Fredericksburg, and a branch that goes over to Lansing and Bay City.
So this is basically all BP and Valero product.
Say again?
It's all BP and Valero product?
No, there's a whole bunch of shippers.
Okay. All North American though?
Yes. So it's refined product. Well, I appreciate you guys letting me come out. Present.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're gonna swap out the laptops.
Question, excuse me, before, not for him, but for us. Now, are we putting something on the village webpage that this project is going on, so that when residents start to see that, they check the webpage, they'll see that on the webpage?
Edwin,
Yes, sir.
you're going to provide us something like your slideshow you just gave us. And whatever you provide us in that format, we'll post directly to our website, so people can go on those. Okay, so as long as you get it through, it will be posted.
Thank you.
Also, before you leave, is there an 800 number in case a resident sees someone back there and has questions or there's some issues? Is there an 800 number that we can provide as well?
And we've got a number, just so the rest of us know, there's a number of pipelines we have going through crisscrossing our community. We had a presentation almost a year ago. And I think we should expect to see some of that activity going on, and that's more of a diagonal, coming from the creek area down towards Peatone. It clips the southeast corner of our village ever so slightly. And that was, Enbridge. And there's a number of pipelines that we have, so it would probably be smart for us, not just with their presentation, but to acknowledge all the pipelines that we have in our town, and post that to our, on that same post, and identify each of them by name and their contact information, so if somebody has a concern, they can contact them.
The Enbridge one, that wasn't existing, that's construction, right?
I think they already had the right of ways, they might be acquiring additional, because I think they're adding an additional line, is that what it was, or they're?
Additional.
They already had some, but they had to expand because of, as he indicated, sometimes when you have extra lines, you need extra space to deal with that. I think they're adding a second line through there for additional feed. Okay.
All right, we ready?
Ruben?
Ready for
Okay.
transition?
Yeah, real quick,
Go ahead.
what we, just to remind the board, back in October of 2013, presented before the board was the idea of beginning a conceptual site plan for the park. And at that time, the board gave approval to move forward with developing a comprehensive park plan. It's been a slow go over the last 16, 17 months or so. In recent months, we have met with Ken Chastain and Vantage Point and began discussing several different options, all the while knowing that we have some issues that are very concerning with the current football field. Part of that issue is the drainage. As you know, and if you remember from last year, the residents remember Fall Fest, the first night we got hit with a monsoon, and we dealt with, throughout that weekend, pretty much of a swamp in different areas of the field. There's also an outdated irrigation system that's currently in place. I'm not sure of the date of when that was placed, but it's residential grade. It's not, it really is not a fit for the field and for the needs. There's also kind of touch on it, but I just wanted to remind the board of those issues. So we've met with Vantage Point, and he's presented some plans to us, and without further ado.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you for being, allowing me to be here. My name is Ken, again, I'm from Vantage Point Engineering, and this is exciting. Usually I get stuck talking about sewer systems and water lines and sewer treatment plants and things like that. So to be able to talk about parks is fun. And it's also a good time because it's springtime. And it's a good time to start talking about getting out to our parks. So this is exciting to be able to do this, and I appreciate the opportunity, Ruben and Mayor. You're right, about 2013, shortly after the mayor came into office, he called me up and he said, come over and take a look at the park. And we started walking, and we started walking and walking, and he had ideas, and we had more ideas, and he had more ideas, and I found out he was no shortage of ideas with our mayor. But the cool thing is that over time, these ideas get to generate, and you get to figure out, which ones work, which ones don't work, and which ones can, make sense. So over that time, we realized, hey, the village had no survey of this property. This municipal property, this park, had no clear definition of what was owned and what wasn't owned. So we did that. And the second thing we did is we wanted to know about the topography. If we're going to be able to correct anything, particularly drainage problems, we want to be able to have a good topography. So those are the first two things we did. With those in place, so we could start talking about ideas. And working with Ruben and DJ and Mary Jo and the mayor, Trustee Gonzalez, who's there as well, we started developing some ideas. The property now, I think the best way to describe it is that this is really the centerpiece of town. This is the town square for Monee. I grew up around here, and as a kid I remember this was always the town square. This is where everything was happening, and even today it's the same thing. But it's really kind of an unformed jewel of the community. There's so much potential here, and it just needs some plans. And we know that projects don't become reality without a vision and without a plan. So the focus here was on to try to deal with some of the challenges that we faced. And one of the big things we talked about was that we got the municipal center here and the public works building, and things get a little tight there. We know that the parking is tight. We know that the parking layout is probably not very congenial to putting in the maximum amount of cars. We talked about the arrangement with the public works and sort of the layout there. Is there a way to do this so that it's more efficient, so that it's a little cleaner, so that we don't have to take up as much space, and we can convert some of that public works space to park area? As the mayor mentioned, as Ruben mentioned, the football field. The current football field is your primary problem, and that is because of that drainage issue. I have taken the opportunity to be out here over the last couple of years whenever you had the Fall Fest and when you had the big football tournaments or after a big monsoon. It was great to come out here and take a look at things because you really get an idea of where the problems are. And for this football field, your central problem is in the drainage and the irrigation. You aren't able to grow the type of seed and the type of lawn that you want to have.
The other thing is that the facility, the park doesn't really have anything to do with some of this open space right here. So the mayor talked about an idea of reconfiguring things so that we can be able to maximize space better. And then I think one of the big things we want to probably talk about is the fact that the curb appeal from the road. As you know, we have some outbuildings there. You have a building here that this is kind of an old picture, but you know the house that's right there. And you guys have also had a shortage of parking. So we talked about these challenges: the football field drainage, the lack of ample parking, baseball and softball field amenities, are really not up to par. They're not modern. They're not really what would be state of the art today. The need for an additional football or soccer field that would allow you to have a tournament with 2 games going on possibly, or room for soccer to practice while football's going on. There's no ADA capabilities on this property at all. Not in a playground, not in parking, and not in sidewalks. We talked about the curb appeal issue with the buildings from Court Street. Also, I've been out here with kids, and there's no way to get around well without getting all muddy after it's wet, right? So having a walking path system would be great. And then also spectator viewing. In a football tournament, it's hard to get room for everybody to see, so having a little bit more room on stands.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me.
Sure.
Could you maybe unblock so we can
Oh, I'm gonna
see?
okay, all right. How
Thank
about I
you.
stand over here? Is that better?
That's great,
All
thank
right.
you.
I gotta keep moving, you see, that's the thing. All right, so with these challenges in mind, we had to talk about funding. Now, funding is an important part of this because we know that we have these challenges we gotta meet. We want to maximize this facility. We also need a plan. We need to put in some sort of a step-by-step phasing plan. And also about funding, because this is going to cost a lot of money. For a small town like Monee, this is a big project. So the best funding opportunity for parks is a program called OSLAD. It's the Open Space Land Acquisition and Development Program. It's funded by the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, IDNR, and is targeted to open space needs and park space for communities like Monee, for the public, to create more opportunities for parks. Now, one of the interesting things about parks is that most communities like Monee are way undersized for parks. The state has a goal, and the organizations of park districts have a goal, that in the state of Illinois, that we would have park space for every 1,000 residents, about 10 acres. So in a community like Monee, that's about 50 acres. Monee is far below the state average, and thus is very much a prime candidate for a program like this, to be able to get additional or improved park space. So we're looking at this, and the mayor made it very clear, is that this village and the board was committed to finding outside funding from state and federal sources in every way we can. So we've been looking at this, and the plan, as I understand it, is that the board would entertain with the staff the opportunity to apply for a grant, an OSLAD grant, coming up in July 1st. It's for open space facilities, no indoor facilities, and it is also, I mentioned, very competitive for this. Now, one little side note on the OSLAD program. It's been in the news quite a bit. It was in fact the front page of the Tribune last week. And that is that the state of Illinois, as you know, has funding problems. And because of that, the new governor has put on hold the funding for this program, the release of the funds for the program. So we actually have park districts or municipalities who have applied for the money and started programs, and this is a reimbursable program, and they have no way of reimbursing themselves. So that is a big question. The good thing to note about OSLAD is that it is funded directly from the real estate transfer tax. So it has a designated funding source. And I talked to Springfield today, and they said they expect that this is going to be released and it's going to go on. So the hope is that we would go ahead and send in these applications in the coming years, and that we would be considered. But to be considered, and to be able to show that you're worthy of this, you need to have a plan. So, without further ado, we started working on a plan. And it focused on, again, one, maximizing the space we have, getting the most out of it. Two, creating better amenities for what we need, such as parking, disability access, more field space, and also to clean up and have better curb appeal. Probably the best way that we can go through this, because I know that a lot of the board members have seen this plan already, but maybe the best way to do this is to go through a sort of a phase-by-phase basis, because we've tried to break this down into phases. This is just a rendering here of what we're looking at, and wanted to pay attention. You're going to see a big hole right there where nothing's there. That's because we decided, along with the mayor's advice, to present this plan without that baseball field. Phase one, which we're presenting and asking you to consider for this coming spring, actually to start on, would be the improvements of the existing football field. It would involve, one, the installation of a storm drain coming from Court Street all the way back to the retention area right in the back there. This main storm drain would service everything on the west side and everything in the football field here. We don't need any additional retention space, but we do need a way to get the water there. Two, it would involve the underground irrigation all throughout here with a commercial grade, athletic style irrigation system. Three, it's going to involve putting a new field in, because the goal here to create more room over to the west is to move this football field 15 feet right over here. You see how it jogs over closer to the parking lot. That 15 feet will allow us to do some things on the west side, which I'll talk about later. So those are the components of this phase one, which we're talking about right here. But it would also involve removing this baseball field. And we've left it green space, we've left it open space.
The softball field.
I'm sorry, softball field, you're right. Softball, you're right, T-ball, softball.
I'm sorry, but there's, to people that it matters, there's a softball field, there is a t-ball field.
Right, okay, good.
Okay, there is a softball field here in town that we do have ladies that play softball.
Okay, great,
Just
great.
throwing it
Right.
out there.
Well, and that's where I'm sure there's gonna be a discussion about what the alternatives are, and I definitely know you're gonna be discussing that.
Ken,
Go ahead.
just to ease everybody's concern in that regard, discussion was had with Baseball Association and repurposing the current t-ball field to make it a full-out softball field, which is across the street right now, and they could really groom that out to make it a full softball field, so that could be done. And then a t-ball field could be put pretty much anywhere you get green space, because there's not as much at play there, and there would be room for that as well. So while this would not necessarily be addressed in phase one, it could be put back there on a secondary phase, or it can just be left where it gets relocated to based on the availability of resources. And frankly, baseball might like having most of their younger sports over there, and then the other field, we Ken, when you get to the other area there, but what I believe is the Bronco and the Mustang baseball field, the boys that play over there typically, that would be left intact until such time as that phase, if ever achieved, would be accomplished over there.
Over there across the
Where it's
street?
currently, where it's currently,
No, where the field is.
the Mustang Bronco field would be left intact, untouched during all those.
Space not fake.
Yeah.
We just had the pictures, the field's still there, that's our reason I brought it up.
Right, Ken, proceed.
Then the last component is to restripe and seal coat and restripe the existing parking lot. I mean, for all of you who use this parking lot, you know it's laid out a little bit strange. I wasn't involved in the layout on it, but we think we can get about 20 more spaces by reconfiguring this parking lot without adding any or at any additional cost other than seal coating and striping. So that's going to add about 20 additional parking spaces for the football field right there. And the hope is that we could start work on this soon in 2015, so that we could be able to utilize the growing season, get the irrigation system in, get it seeded, and then have it ready by August 1st for football season and Fall Fest.
What size drain tile was that you put in or something like
That would be the corrugated, there's a commercial corrugated collection system that they use in football fields. Actually, what's kind of interesting on this is it's totally new earthwork. They kind of bring in earthwork and they fluff it up. And one of the things you don't want to do with this, you don't want to be driving over it after that. You know, we wouldn't want to do anything, let's say, over on the other side of this where we're cutting across the field with commercial or equipment. So the key is to create the type of soil covering over the drain tiles so that everything percolates down very easily.
Do you anticipate adding, fill to that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Raising it up?
Yep, and creating the slope and the drainage off to each side.
Okay. Okay.
So the collection system is pretty important. Okay, this is phase one. We're breaking this down into years. Phase two goes to 2016. The areas in brown deal with earthwork. The idea is to take the area to the east, the baseball field, and reconfigure it. We're going to basically switch it over, move it to the south. And to do that, we've got to do a lot of topographic difference. We have to create some earth removing right there. And what we thought was, hey, let's find a place for that on site. And by creating more room back here with fill and then blacktopping out, we believe we can take the bins that DJ uses that are over here right now and move them all over here to this side and not having to lose any bins that he needs. So we're going to create some more parking space for him and his vehicles and his material by getting this fill out of here and getting this mound out here, because otherwise we got a problem. And I know the baseball field has some issues, but this would create the opportunity also to make sure we get a level football field right here, or soccer field. This is phase two, and it's phase 2A, and we broke it down in two areas, in two parts, because this could actually be done in the fall. We could do this after Fall Fest, after football season, we could do the earthwork. So we broke it down for your benefit, whether you want to do it all in 1 year or not. It could be done in 2015. The second part of this phase is actually constructing the baseball field and the football field, and putting in some amenities, which is the dugouts right there. So that's a very expensive type of process. It's going to also allow us to do some, because of the earthwork, we're going to do a little berm work right over here on the side. And you can see here, and I don't know if you can see these lines, but we are going to connect to this main drain line. We're going to connect drainage so we can drain all of this right in here. So again, that master planning on the drainage. This is phase two. This puts us in a place that by the end of 2016, we have 2 football fields or multi-use soccer fields, and then 1 expanded, improved baseball field. Phase 3. Phase 3 gets a little fun because now we're starting to talk about how we can get people from one place to another. So you can see the areas in blue here is a sidewalk. We need a sidewalk along the road here. And with sidewalk we carry along this part of the parking area. This is going to allow people to transverse around the park, the fields. So this area in gray is asphalt, and the area in blue is concrete. And this will connect with the concrete sidewalk here. Also, you see here, this area in purple, that is stands for the new stands that will carry up about 3 times the capacity we have now for the football field. So not only are we creating a walkway around it, but we're also creating more capacity for people to watch the games and watch them with ease instead of being so packed in around there with the umbrellas and all the chairs. Okay, that's phase 3. We're looking at now, 2017. All right, this is a familiar area. We have the existing multi-purpose building, the picnic shelter right there. And we have the historic building right here. And we have, right about right here is your existing concession area, your 2-story building that you have. We're proposing we tear that down and we replace it with a modern, state-of-the-art concession area, bathroom facility, that would be accessible for ADA as well as for families, have a family changing room, have a modern concession area, and that it would be two-story and will allow people to see, the way it's designed, be able to see over both the north part of the field, the north part of the park, as well as the east part of the park. The other plan was, I think as you know, is that we are in dire need of improving the picnic area. So if the board elected to do those improvements, that could be done at any time, but that does need to be done. And then finally, is that why not create an opportunity with this historic building here to use that front part there as a stage, and to have more of the type of things you've already done with your events, where you could have more entertainment or singing, music, you could have some drama, you could have things for kids. And then to make it more palatable is to really improve the front yard. I mean, we really need to do that. So the idea is to create some lines there using cinders or paving blocks for people to walk, and then put their chairs in the grass or sit on the grass, sit on the lawn, and do the topography so that it shoots up a little bit better going towards the stage. We would also complete, pardon me?
What about drainage in that area?
Drainage, yes. We are going to bring the drainage down in this phase, a good point. We're going to bring the drainage down and connect with everything in here. Because as you know, it's a good point, the drainage in here isn't very good. You've got this big mound, and it's got gravel on it, and it piles over and it comes down, over towards this way. There's also retaining walls that are going to be walked along here too, along this walkway. They're actually, these dugouts are going to be below grade. So there's going to be a retaining wall system that's going to separate these two different grades. And we connect some more of the walkway here. That is phase 4, that's 2018. Phase 5. Now, what was fun was earlier talking about the Veterans Memorial. We had it in this phase here, but boy, it'd be great to see that thing done right away. So we'll sort of just put that as the future memorial will be right there. But in this phase, we talk about, we're going to be adding these courts right here. These are sand volleyball courts. So we use this space. Now, one of the reasons why we chose the sand volleyball courts is because should the village expand, and they want to expand the village hall here, these amenities are really not that expensive, and they're easy to take out, and you're not really losing a lot of money involved. In this phase, we have a dog park right up here in the far corner, and that's a small area that'd be designed for people to walk their pets. We connect then all the future drainage through the parking area. We convert this area right here, which is an old tennis court, I believe, into more modern parking with the proper ingress and egress out of it. And then we add in this area here, this in gravel. We're going to be looking to pave all this area here. And we finish out the walkway. So that's phase 5 in 2019. Phase 6. A lot of landscaping in this. Landscaping the areas in yellow. Amenities like park benches and flower pots and things like that. We also are going to add a new play area here, and the play area will be designed for kids who have disability, special needs kids. Now almost all park areas that they're going to get any public funding have to meet the needs of kids who have special needs. That's phase 6. And then we go to the next one, and we add in the last feature, which is a splash park. And that's a fun thing that increasingly parks are looking to do. Part of the thing with the idea is there that you create opportunities in the summertime for kids to get outside, and along with that, right here, put in some basketball hoops. So we'd have a fully modern walkway system all the way through, sidewalks along the road, parking with asphalt bituminous parking, the basketball, ADA play area, the dog park, the play lot, the football field, the new redesigned baseball field, and the improvements with what you have with your existing football field. everybody asks what it costs. These are today's dollars. Who knows what they're gonna cost in the future? But we try to break it down in a way, because Ruben stressed pretty clearly, hey, we've got to be able to take these off in chunks. You know, there's no way to bite this off all the way. And we need to be able to see whether we have the funding from state sources like we were planning on. So this is a long way off. When I think about 2021, remember those numbers? They seem like a long way off, didn't they? But I guess they're coming up pretty quick. So anyway, this is what we believe. We believe we can get this in at under $5 million. This is just construction costs. We put in a 10% contingency in here. The engineering is not included, but the engineering will be less than the 10%. So we think that these are good numbers, again, for today. But this phase one, that's the number here that we're talking about for 2015. Okay. Questions?
Trustees?
That's a lot to absorb.
Dream big. Dream big.
As far as phase one goes, I'm gonna direct this towards Daryl. You've seen these numbers. Going into next year's budget, this is a reality as far as phase one goes. And the reason I ask that, because we all know that,
You'll come on.
you know, the football grounds, as we use for fall up here, is a mess. It's been for a while, and I absolutely agree that needs to be fixed, because the crest on that thing, any rainstorm we do get, as Kevin said, he's walked out here and saw it, is that should be in our budget for next year? Is that feasible? Is the way I should put it.
If next year runs like this year, it is feasible. Actually, you know, this current year, we're sitting at a nice projected revenue amount. We would be able to actually get that in this year, in this fiscal year, if we decided to.
All right, let me clarify. I know you and I have gone over this, Ruben's gone over it, and Doug's looked at a lot of the numbers as well. Just to be clear, we've put $350,000 in our reserves, we're not touching that.
That's correct, yes.
That was from a renegotiated development agreement.
Correct.
You're talking about, we are going to have an excess of the $300,000 identified here for phase one that should be well below our projected expenses on our balanced budget, which means that our revenue will still be greater than our expenses and will be below the budgeted expenses for the year.
Correct.
And well in excess of the $300,000 identified on this.
That is correct, yes.
Like I said, everybody's, you're going step by step by year, you know, as Trustee Hulse has said, you know, it's a lot of numbers being thrown around. I just want to make it clear that, you know, as far as phase one goes, and I know this is, like Ken said, the mayor, this has been a couple of years, because I know that we talked about this originally when the mayor took over. You know, him and I had discussions on this, you know, the grounds need to be fixed. I mean, it's been a long time, especially with the drainage. Again, I talked with Ruben too on this the other day for a set of time, so. Just wanted to put that out there, just, you know, we're not just throwing numbers out there, just gonna go ahead and throw caution to the wind and hope that we can afford it, so.
Other trustees?
I'm gonna back up, starting with the end of the story. The splash park, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, the idea on the splash park is, this is a, you know, I don't know if you've seen Fort Frankfurt over down the road, and Frankfurt has one. A lot of parks are building them, but there are these water structures that come out, and they're designed for younger kids. They're not for older kids. And the water runs, and the water runs and it runs, and then they actually have ways in which you can, when the kids get on the surface, they have timers so that the water comes on, so you're not wasting water. So they usually have surfaces that are concrete with a padding on them. You know, the rubberized padding that you see at modern parks. So it has a modern type of padding on it that prevents the kids from getting hurt when they fall and slip, and they do fall and slip. It has all the drainage tile that's put in and all the drain collectors that would connect to the drain system out there. So the idea is to create something fun for younger kids. But hey, it's Illinois. what, you got 3 months, you know, that they're used or so? That's a big question. And I will point out, I'll be objective, these things are not cheap. So the nice thing about this plan is that's a long way down the road. Your questions about the feasibility of these are all gonna have to be determined in the years to come.
But it's not unlike a fountain where you have water shooting out of different areas. And
No, it's more downcast, and they do have things they jump through, and there's the curves and the rainbows and things.
Okay.
Sure, can you do that again? I didn't quite get the gestures, I was on this side.
Yeah.
So my question is, I mean, certainly it's a great idea.
Yes, sir.
As all of these, it's a fairly compact area, so kind of a twofold question. When we're done, how much parking space are we gonna have?
Yeah, it's a good question. We're estimating with the improvements here and over here, that we're gonna get about 70 more parking spaces put in. We've got ADA parking right through here. We're gonna have additional ADA, it's not noted, but we'll have it up here up close for people. We're gonna get these spaces all in here, which you know, as you know, we've already invested in gravel for a lot of this. One side note, let's also take note, is that we've lost some buildings. We've got a house that's right there that's no longer there in this plan. And we have a outbuilding that's no longer there for storage. So one of the things we talked about, and you know, DJ's been very keen on this, is to create some more storage. We put storage here and possibly storage in the back for your events.
Behind the creamery or what?
Well, right now, there's a bathroom there.
Right now,
which is
right.
Right.
Not the nicest.
We lose the bathroom and convert that into a nice, attractive
Part of the
storage.
as much as the nostalgia of the old building is great, the problem is the people who put that bathroom in, saw cut right through the limestone.
No, I've seen it, the bathroom could go.
Right, right, so.
I don't need to go, I can hold it.
That depends.
But what about the Fall Fest? Is this gonna impede us having the annual Fall Fest when it's done?
No, it should actually enhance our abilities, I would think.
That seemed to be a common concern was, you know, what do we do about fireworks, for instance? How do we set up fireworks?
Right.
Is making sure that we plan for things ahead of time, because these are traditions you want to keep.
Well, and it would be nice, we hear a lot about how we don't have anything for our kids and for our young people in the village of Monee, so that part's a huge plus. Obviously, Larry has lots of money when he's not paying the landlord fee, so he'll be able to help pay for that. Where's Larry?
Larry's like, what?
And Lee?
Specify what's Larry.
Shooting daggers at you.
So obviously, we're gonna have to figure out how to pay for something like this, but the concept is great because it does give us things for our children. And for the older kids who want to play football, we don't have a soccer program in Monee. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to have that?
Yes, sir.
So that's part. The volleyball courts, yeah, you know, but how do we, just pick on it. How do we, are we gonna put a fence around this? Is the intention when we're done then to fence this in, or? is it
That's
gonna be
very, I'm sorry, I left off, but that's an important point. We have added fencing, improved fencing here with the access to this little exit right here. We have fencing that goes along here. We also have retaining wall. We've got a dip right there. We'll have retaining wall there with fencing that goes all the way around the perimeter.
Excuse me, could you touch on the backside of Golf Vista? Just, I know there would be concern about size.
That was my next question.
If you could maybe address that.
Right, you're talking about right over here?
Yes.
Okay.
And up through the back as well with DPW.
Right, right. Yeah, I think the point was is that Ruben mentioned is that obviously with those bins being so close, it just brings people closer to when the machinery has to come in and unload, you know, mulch or stone or load up some. It brings everybody so much closer to these homes. So by creating the berms, we're going to create a little bit of distance there. But the big thing is that, as Ruben pointed out, is by reconfiguring and adding on this parking area back here, we can get most of these bins back over here. Hopefully there'll be a time where, one, a great vision would be that this is no longer your public works building. Your public works building is somewhere elsewhere, you know. You've got more room for DJ and his operation. But two is that we can get by with just what we're doing here with the bins and actually don't have to have the bins over here. So then the truck traffic comes around and is doing it back here, which has the retention area in the back. Remember this, that right here on the north side, we've got all this retention pond. So, the
But
whole-
currently, the Gulf Vista folks are able to get to the village now with the gate.
They still would.
So that's still gonna be there?
right,
Correct.
Okay, that's what I think Ruben's question was, and my question was.
I'm sorry, yes, that's, we have a gate right there. So the fence will be improved fencing what we have now.
I'm not on the board, but I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You're talking about truck traffic coming in from the Gulf Vista area. Is this going to increase the truck traffic in Gulf Vista?
No, sir, I didn't mean to say that. There would be no truck traffic coming in from this area. The truck traffic always comes in from here, like
Thank
it
you.
does right now.
Thank you.
About lighting.
Pardon?
What about lighting?
Lighting is a very big part of this. Lighting is going to be essential. Now, in our plan, we did not put special nighttime lighting in for here, or the baseball field. If you want those things, it can be done. It's a natural, why not? But they weren't in the figures. The idea was that we would create the security lighting that we need throughout the whole facility, improve the lighting, have some landscape lighting that goes along the path here so that when people walk, they're walking their dog at night, you know, the path is lit up. So we want to have security. Certainly the play area, the tot area, we want to have good security and lighting there, and cameras. The other thing you'd want to have today is security cameras. So the security lighting, security cameras. If the board wants to have that nighttime, you know, recreation ability, we're going to need to spend money on that.
Isn't part of the OSLAD grant too, if we do improvements on the football field anyway, part of the OSLAD grant has lighting as part of it because
Yes,
it's
ma'am.
outdoor?
Yes, ma'am. You can pay for infrastructure, and lighting is part of infrastructure unless it's used for recreation, like nighttime games, nighttime baseball. And then that's just like, hey, that's a recreational purpose, so that's easy. But the trustee Gonzalez points out very well, and that is that the OSLAD grant program won't just pay for a parking lot. They will pay for a baseball in a parking lot, or they'll pay for a play area in a parking lot, but they won't just pay for the parking lot or the walkways. They want to make sure you're doing recreation too.
And this is renewable, or we could reapply each year that we're planning on these bases?
Not only that, they love to see multi-year plans. They love to see visions. And we would have no chance of getting an OSLAD grant without a vision and a plan. Now, we can change that. The board can change this at any time. That's the beauty of these things. You're just biting off a piece at a time.
But the phase one is the most critical that we all are aware of, the need for the drainage issues and everything, and the recrowning of the football field and such like that.
The other thing I kind of like is the idea that it's always nice to have some space to figure out what you want to do in the future, you know? And if you decided, because one point I would make for phase one right here is that we would lose baseball for this year. Softball in this area. We would lose softball in this area right here, so.
If you relocated across the street.
Right, you're gonna be relocating it anyway. You could always return it, we could put in another field here that would add to the cost of our total. But the softball would have to be moved to this year anyway.
Now, on the information I have, there's a phase one and a phase 1B. If I remember right, you said $359,000 for
Right.
phase one. Does that include 1 and 1B both?
Well, I've got a new report that shows you right here what we've just seen on the screen. So Ruben will be able to pass these out later on for you. But it's going to have that, and then for the board, I can provide you with detailed spreadsheets for all the items as well. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
With the increased draw in people to the area, has the increased congestion on Court Street been thought about?
It's a better question for your public safety people.
I don't think that'd be any different than you'd see during Fall Festival.
What we do know is we have better access to the parking lots than we have right now. Because remember that little tennis court area there where there's no, people come in there, they park any which way. This is going to actually direct them to better parking, but we can get in and out of this area safely. And the sidewalk, I think, is the other thing too. People walking alongside the road is not a good way to do it. Any other questions? I'll, just by the way, for the board. I will be here through the end. I'll be happy to meet with you afterwards and, you know, analyze anything or take a look at the spreadsheet. We can do that too.
All right, so the price that you have, is that based upon competitive bidding? How did you come to this price?
The price here for phase one, you're speaking?
You're an engineering firm.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Who's
So,
doing the work and how do we choose it?
that's a very good question. These are just like any of your other public works projects. These would go off a public bid. What we did was we called contractors that we work with closely, people who do earth moving, people who do underground utilities, people who do irrigation systems, and people who do the seeding. And we got some quotes. We nailed down as close as we could what it would be, and that's what we based that price on. But you're right, this would need to be spec'd out. We first of all need the engineering plans. To be able to know exactly how this costs, we're gonna need to do engineering plans. Then we would go ahead and put it up for bid.
And how long is that gonna take?
Pardon me?
How long the engineering plan take?
This is pretty easy stuff for us. So we'd have this able to go to bid by May 1st.
I thought we needed it done by May 1st.
No, July.
No, two things, hold on, let's back up. We need this project started, I thought, in the middle of May in order to get it done by May.
Yes, sir.
So if you can't so you'd actually have to have all this bid out.
Yes.
Of course, there's different aspects of it too.
Right.
We don't necessarily have to have the seeding done at the first step.
But we're talking about the football people not being able to play football.
No,
For some reason.
well, we gotta make sure we hold to a timeline, just like we're doing with any of the other engineering.
That's right.
That's right.
And you do have timelines, as the attorney will note about your bidding and your public notice. But our goal is to get, once we get the go-ahead, we're gonna be on that engineering to get that thing done.
So we just have to commit the money to spend it by May 1.
No, we gotta commit now in order for them to be able to have their specs ready. The sooner they get the approval, the sooner you can put it up to bid.
We put together the plans and the specs,
Right.
which would be used then by contractors to submit a bid.
So the money that's in here is an estimate, not a firm bid.
That's correct.
Could be
That's
higher,
correct.
could be lower.
That's correct.
But let me clarify, football season, I believe, starts
August 1.
when?
Last week of July is camp start, right?
Well, but they would be using that for that chat.
You're smiling.
We're
Practicing
we're
officers
starting
and that.
July 20th.
Yeah, but when's the
Yeah.
first game you need to field?
First home game is August 8th, I believe.
Okay.
But you're usually out in the field mid-July, because I've seen you.
Yeah, but they don't have to practice. Is that correct?
Yeah, we can go back to the baseball field because that's where you guys won't be working this year.
Right, we're only doing one section at a time.
I think that August 1st is that's sort of what's in my mind, is August 1st, getting it ready by then. And that means healthy sod, healthy turf.
Right, and, so you would, Larry, what's the timeline requirement for going out to bid on a project? What do you have to?
We usually take, the other places I work with, we take the engineer's specs, the board approves the specs, we go off for bid. Fire the contractor at least once. We usually, in a project like this, there's not harm in putting in twice for review. It all depends on the village meetings too, you know, how fast we have to move it.
So is it possible, if we're looking to expedite this because of the time crunch in the fall, is it possible to go ahead and put how long is it gonna take you to find, I know you're doing a lot of work on this, but how long is it gonna take you to actually build the initial specs necessary for being able to bid from, number one? But number two, Larry, can you post, because you know there's gonna be certain things that are, it takes time to get things into publications. Can you actually go ahead and do the publication notices and tell them where to contact to get the specs in order to bid?
We probably could, but I think the problem might be, Mayor, is that these contractors, they won't know what to bid on until.
I understand, but you could put your notices out and say the specs will be ready by this date.
That's right. That's right.
And-
That's right. They would have a date, in
And
fact,
have
that
a
they would
bid,
come, for instance, they could come to our office, or they could come to Village Hall and pick up the plans. So we would have the notice to bid that's all spec'd out, explains the project, the scope of it, where it's
So
located.
you give your 2 weeks notice that it's gonna be available on X date,
Right.
April 10th or something
Right,
like
right.
that. And then you're gonna have your bid opening April 20th or something like
Yeah,
that.
I think usually Larry's correct, that we start with a letting date and we work back from there. So we'd have a letting gate goal and say, hey, we gotta get this thing done by this time, that including engineering. It's not a complicated engineering project.
So if this project was started in October, in 2013, why did it take till now to come up with a plan that we have to hurry on?
Well, good question. We actually got commissioned to start work on this back in November of 2014. That's when we had done all the preliminary work, which is the survey and the topo. But we spent a year talking about what could be done, how do we make it work.
2013.
Right, 2013. We spent a year talking with the staff about funding, how do we do this grant? And the ideas kept evolving over time too.
Sure.
DJ and Ruben all had a lot of input, and Mary Jo has not got input, so it really started to gel at the end of 2014. And then we just produced these numbers. In fact, I think we got you estimates by the very end of the year so that you could start thinking about your finances.
And frankly, at this point, I think one of the things to contend with was that knowing that OSLAD grants, as much as we're gonna pursue those, I don't think there's any guarantees that those are gonna be available in the next couple of years. And if we wanna do anything on this part, we're not going to the extent that we wanna go or anything like that. This is just the nominal part that is necessary to correct the current atrocity, if you will, the field scenario there. We're gonna have to put skin in the game no matter what. The reason why we push back, there's things that I probably would have tried to have gotten done first, because I was thinking alternate projects and try to get other things done. I would have almost gone for the second football field first, so you could have gotten that done. You could then use that, use the old one while you're doing the new one, and then back and forth. But after hearing what staff had to say about it, DJ, Mary Jo especially, they felt the necessity warranted dealing with just the current field, if we can get it done in a timely manner to be the least disruptive to the play season in the fall. When I talked to Theo today, who's kind of their in-house, for football's in-house turf expert, so he'll want to be consulted with them.
Sure.
But I think at this point, we're going to put skin in the game if we're going to do this, no matter what we do with grants or whatever else. If we don't do it now, it could be, depends on if we don't get matching funds from the state in the future, it could be 3 or 4 years until the state figures out what to do about their financial situation. So the 7 phases you indicated there, instead of the final year you had indicated on there, 2021, it could be pushed back a few more years based on whether the state's ever gonna, and how much we decide we're just gonna do ourselves in spite of that.
It's nice to have a plan. Just one last question. Item number 2 on phase 1, construct a sign. I missed that again. What sign are we talking about?
Oh, just an updated sign for the park itself. Now that's not a big cost, and that's not anything that's necessary because you already have one sign. But the idea was that we would add larger, modern signs that would be a little larger and sort of.
That's optional.
I mean, that's.
We could go out and say Comiskey Field, or whoever wanted to donate,
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, certainly looking for people to be a sponsor of the field would be worthwhile.
There's other options we can look at for financial down the road.
Yeah, and we may, if we find there's certain things that we're trying to accomplish that are not otherwise funded by grants, we could reach out to some of our local businesses. If they want to sponsor the lighting, that's an easier way to address that. I think, Ken, you and I had also talked at one point about facilitating in that new parking area, maybe a slight reconfiguration if they wanted to use that for, street hockey.
Street hockey, right.
Because currently we don't have anywhere effectively playing that right now either. And I don't, did you say that would be diverse? Would that be suitable if you wanted to flood it for ice?
No.
You cannot do that.
No, that would not work here.
Could you do that on the volleyball courts?
We would have to check out the specs and see what we got in here in terms of size. We're doing a combination roller hockey and an ice hockey rink in another town. We're coming up with a plan for a grant. And that could work right in here. The idea is you flood that in the winter time, you don't refrigerate it, and then, you know, if you have a winter like this, you get a lot of use out of it. If you have a bad winter, you might, you know, it might be a lot of water there. But it's one of those things, you drain it, and then it's used for roller hockey most of the year. So that's possible for this area right here. It's a larger investment of cost.
And none of those are pre-commitments, those are just ideas that could be adjusted this time.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, and I don't see anything here indoors, so who knows, maybe an indoor pool.
Yes.
Yeah, we have $10 million for that.
Take it.
Fine.
You'll take it?
Pool,
Yes.
yes.
The indoor pool, how about right back there? You got
Yep.
the big indoor facility.
Awesome.
And water's already there. What would you like, Mr. Mayor?
I'd like a motion to approve a phase one as presented. And Mr. Chastain, before we accept this motion, the 315, did that include the 10% margin that you were discussing?
Yes, it does. It does include a 10% contingency. It does not include the engineering. The engineering, I think I sent you an email, Ruben, for 6.5% for engineering, the expected cost.
And Ruben, you had identified something as an anomaly there on the engineering fees, that you thought that they were excessively low.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm just highlighting this so everybody knows that, because normally it's.
Yeah, sure.
No, I just want everybody to know, but normally for engineering, it's what, 15?
Generally, yes, 15.
Well, I might just say that I'd encourage you to look at other options for engineering, because there are other ways to do it.
I've said.
But you create a competitive environment, that's what happens with fees.
I appreciate that, I just want the board to realize that the fees are extremely low comparatively to.
This is what we would charge in the private sector to do it.
So we need to add another 20,000 to this.
Yeah, with the so with the 10% contingency, phase one as presented, with 10% contingency and the 6%.
No, he said 10 was included, sir.
Oh, the 10% is included in the.
Yeah, the 315 these are estimates with a 10% contingency to deal with, and we think we got them down pretty tight, that's why it's 10% instead of 20 or 30%. We want tight numbers.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to approve phase one as presented with the 6% engineering cost added to that. Is that a correct way to present it?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Holston and Gray, roll call please.
Trustee Gonzalez,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Holston,
Yes.
Horn,
Yes.
and Raisik.
Yes.
I expect but well.
We will start working on it, I can assure you that.
What time do you get in the office?
Thank you very much, I appreciate your time.
Can we get this in a?
Yes, I will send you the PowerPoint so you can put it on the website. Yep, very good. Thank you very much, thank you.
That's predicated upon.
He says that they want to leave there. Anything else?
Okay, that's really quick slide.
The officials report, Public Works, has left the building.
Yeah.
All right, we'll come back to that. Parks and Rec, Trustee Gonzalez.
I just had a couple things. First, Mary Jo too wanted me to convey the message that not only does Monee belong to the Illinois Parks and Recs Association in Illinois now too, we're able to apply for more grants too, and Parks and Rec Department has been chosen to receive a $1,000 Power Play Beyond School grant awarded by the Illinois Association of Park Districts. So we'll be able to have summer programming, including good health, nutrition, exercise, and arts and crafts. And those programs, would you say, June to December, right? So congratulations, Mary Jo.
Good job, Mary Jo. I'll go on to finance, Trustee Horn.
Yeah, I met with Daryl yesterday, and speaking about these funds that we just voted, we are in very healthy shape. want people to know that. We looked at revenues and expenses. Revenues are actually are below where we projected, which would be a cause for concern, except that expenses are below as well. So revenues are expected to be about 3.6 million. Expenses are at about approximately 3.0 million. So we do have some wiggle room, some money there for this project. Well, that's what we voted it for. And then we're also putting funds in reserve, as the mayor alluded to. We're working on the following policies, and I know the trustees have samples of policies in which we need to look at. Yeah, it's in a packet that we got. But an investment policy, debt management policy, fraud prevention policy, capital program and budget policy, and credit card policy. So those are evolving and in process, and I expect we'll look at those in the weeks ahead. End of report.
Public Works, trustee Gray.
One thing this evening, I spoke with DJ today, who was down in Springfield, as I spoke last week about the reward for the water department with the Clean Bill of Health in Illinois. Going into next spring, he will be asking us to, as we did last year, allow $20,000 in the budget for the trees. He did ask the public that once that system does come up and start evolving, the trees will be going on the public parkways, that if you do have landscaping around them, where the trees will be placed, please remove that landscaping, because the village is not responsible for that, because it's out of the public property. So any damage that does happen, again, they will try not to, but it will not be the responsibility. And you will see the flag markings before, as we spoke about an hour ago about Julia coming out and doing the markings. I know that they've done them in the Highlands. You will see the flags out there. You will know they're coming. But again, he would just ask the residents that will be getting the trees in to move any landscaping so that there's no damage, so that they can do their due diligence. Thank you.
Business development with trustee Wilson.
Yes, sir, several things. May 12th, Tuesday at 2 o'clock, there's a long-range transportation plan for Will County meeting being held at Governor State University. The public is welcome to come. They'll be talking about the transportation plan and issues that the county is facing. That forum is being held at a number of places, but that's the closest place that's being held at relative to where we are here. I plan on attending and asking the gentleman I'm going to introduce now to attend with me. Kevin Daly joined the village on February 2nd this year as a part-timer. Kevin, if you would stand up, so that those people who haven't met know who he is. I forget his background, but I believe he worked for the state of Illinois Insurance Division.
Yes, I worked at the Illinois Department of Insurance.
Okay. Since February 2nd, Kevin has participated in a March 25th training course for the Location 1 Information System, or LOIS. He's attended the monthly Chicago Southland meeting and is already on the subcommittee for retail outreach. He's been involved on some TIF incentives and TIF district finances reviews, working with the Will County GIS program. He's engaged with several brokers already to begin building relationships and bring opportunities for development to Monee. He has been working with responses. If somebody listens to our radio ad now and they send in a response, Kevin will be the first line of touch basing with them to determine that. I believe he works under the guidance of Darrell Bullner. Am I correct? Correct. He has been meeting, previously, just recently met with a business owner to address current concerns, property tax, etc., and discuss possibilities of developing another property that owner has. He's been communicating with advertising representatives, specifically the radio, to maximize the effectiveness of Monee's market. Attended the annual SSMMA meeting on February 6th. He attended the WCGL luncheon with Governor Rauner on March 12th. I believe the mayor was present for that one as well. Saw his picture. Never looked better, Mr. Mayor. Attended the ICSC Midwest IDEX and Alliance program. He used the Dakota Worldwide Grocery Study that we did last fall at that meeting and was fortunate enough to at least get a broker's interest, followed up with a broker. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, but he's already generating some excitement and some interest and some follow-up. Had the pleasure of meeting him a couple times now. I'm looking forward to working again, even though he's part-time at the moment, having somebody who's working on business development and economic development. So thank you for the good work you've done, Kevin. I look forward to us working with you in the future.
Thank you for
That's
the
my
opportunity.
report, sir.
David, what time is that meeting on? Did you say the 12th?
2 to 5 o'clock.
Okay.
There is a $25 fee on that, I believe. So if you're interested in going, contact the village office.
Okay.
Trustee Pop is not here. Mr. Batista, do you have anything regarding building services at this time?
The Indian motorcycle project is moving forward. We're being through inspections. They hope to be up and running in the next few weeks. You know, they've got a delivery of motorcycles that are coming.
We'll just have to sell them without a building.
I think it's 44 motorcycles they're going to start off with.
Great.
So things are moving forward there. Advanced auto as well, doing ahead as planned.
Are we getting close to getting a department manager for the department?
Yes, we've interviewed 3 different candidates over the last few weeks. We are getting close to bringing someone in.
Are any of those candidates Monee residents?
No, sir.
Have we had any Monee residents apply?
Not for that position.
I think they're in close proximity, at least within the next town over.
Right, one in a township, one in an adjoining town.
Okay. Anything else, sir?
That's it.
Okay. Public safety and police?
Couple things. Reminder, this Monday, Monee EMA will be hosting its severe weather spotting class from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. If you're interested, you have to register. You have to call 815-723-1455. There's only a few seats left available, and this will be taught by the National Weather Services, and all participants will receive a certificate. The class is open to the public, and there's currently 68 reserved seats, and they're going fast.
Okay. Just so a follow-up to some, sorry, thank you. Just on a slight follow-up, early voting is taking place. It'll be a little bit busier on your Friday because early voting is going on Friday during the day. Football has signups Friday evening. Saturday, they will both be taking place here in this room, so that'll be interesting. So we'll have a little bit of a
We get 2 for 1.
yeah, right, just make sure everybody votes, I guess, right? Right, so, make sure everybody gets signed up for that. Attorney's report?
Thank you, Mayor. I have 3 items for the board's review and consideration.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I thought you were done. Proceed. I thought you were done.
All right, the police department. The police department, tomorrow is doing its Explorer program finally, from 7 to 8:30 p.m. at the Monee Police Department headquarters, 5257 West Main Street, to introduce the program to the young men and women interested in the skills the police department has to offer. They're trying to get the name Post 1200 for the Explorer group to coincide with Monee's Post 1200. And the Monee Police Department has added Leads Online to its crime-fighting toolbox. In an effort to further combat crime in Monee, the Monee Police Department is now using Leads Online, an investigative system that enables detectives to search for suspects of stolen property across secondhand stores, scrap metal recyclers, precious metal buyers, pawn shops, and internet eBay drop-off stores, both locally and nationwide. The chief.
We're clients of Leads Online now because Will County dropped their database a little over a year ago. And once they did that, my detective was then obligated to start traveling widely to try and find this stuff. So when we had the opportunity to become a client of Leads Online, to be able to use a database so he could be at the station instead of using up gas and resources to do this, it became real obvious to us that this was gonna be a benefit to the village. So being able to look through pawn shop databases, resellers, scrap yards, typically places where people would pawn or hawk or get rid of stolen items, has been a real boon for us. The upside of this is also that the village now, residents have the ability to go to report it online, which is part of our Leads Online contract, which allows you to become part of their database. If you choose to, you can take photographs of your jewelry, go online, register your jewelry, have yourself a nice inventory online, that if something does happen to you, we can automatically access it, we don't have to worry about it. Your serial numbers for your electronics will be recorded, pictures of your jewelry is recorded. It's gonna be a great thing for people to use, and it's free to any resident in town.
Chief, one more time. I'm sorry, Anthony, what time was the Police Explorer program tomorrow?
7 to 8:30.
Question,
For what ages?
sorry.
14 to 20, 21.
14 to 20 years of age, yes.
20?
Up to 21, not past 20.
Any exceptions?
No. Is that even?
They don't take long.
I have a question either for Anthony or the chief. Do we have copies of this for the general public? Is that out somewhere?
We can leave those up in front of it.
Okay.
This might be a nice thing to put on the website and or Facebook page too.
Mayor Joe, can you help us make sure we get that on there? That's fine.
And a report, Mr. Mayor?
Are you sure?
Yes. As long as you don't cut me off.
I'm not so sure I like sitting down here. Attorney's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I got 3 items for the board's review and consideration. The first item is an ordinance issuing a variance filed by Oscar and Karen Griffin. I believe Mr. Griffin's in the audience tonight. The zoning board hearing took place last week. Mr. and Mrs. Griffin want to install a fence in their property. Public hearing was held. There's no objections to the same. The board recommended approval for a variance for Oscar and Karen Griffin.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the request as submitted through P&Z and approved by P&Z.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I believe, just so the board's aware of this, it's one of those properties that's adjoining, their backyard kind of faces the sidewalk because their backyard faces Will Center. And I know that they, Mr. Griffin, I know you talked to our public works superintendent, and he clarified the offset that we're looking for in the future off of the sidewalk. Okay. All right, we have a first and a second.
Warren Racick?
Yes, sir.
Ordinance number?
Ordinance number.
1716.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Gray?
Yes.
Holston?
Yes.
Warren?
Yes.
Racick?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. The next item is also an ordinance issuing a variance filed on behalf of Jim Revelle. Mr. Revelle, as Ruben indicated, is well on his way to establishing another business. He has requested the board a variance to allow 2 signs in this property and to increase the sign. There was a public hearing held, once again, last Wednesday. There are no objections to the proposal. A recommendation was made by the zoning board to approve the variance as filed by Mr. Jim Revelle.
And again, I know a couple of you have served on the P&Z board. The way they measure the signs has to do with the rectangular outlay of the sign. In some cases, you have signs that are oval or odd shapes like a big I for Indian or something like that. They have to measure the entire rectangular shape of that to get the square footage. That was all addressed and identified that the recommendation of P&Z was this was a reasonable request just because of that. Instead of notching out and measuring all the differences, it seemed reasonable. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the request from Mr. Revell regarding the Indian Victory dealership.
I'll entertain that motion.
Second.
Discussion?
So, you made the motion? Okay, and then Gonzalez, so Razor and Gonzalez, discussion.
Yes, sir. I have no issue with the ordinance at all, but I do remember that about a year ago, we did have a sign ordinance that came up before the board.
Correct.
The board took no action and that time add on it. I'm going to recommend under old business tonight that we put it on the agenda for next month for discussion.
Okay.
So that we can move on. The P and Z board did take action. We owe it to them to either take action or send it back to them for further review.
Just so the board's aware of this, I know we talked about this yesterday. We've been a little bit in flux in the building code enforcement department. We had a manager, we don't have a manager, we're looking to bring one in. What had been brought up subsequent to their recommendation, there were some very negligible recommendations the P and Z had made on regards to, I say negligible, they weren't really glaring significant changes. We had talked internally as a staff about providing some latitude this year based on the recommendations that P and Z had made, trying to deploy some of those to see how it carried over before we create an ordinance and then turn around and go, we really didn't want to do that, you know. So what we were doing is we were using a little bit of latitude upon the request to see how reasonable those changes were, because most of those changes as requested had to do with temporary signage more so than permanent structures. So on a temporary signage issue, we could have afforded some latitude from the internal administrative policies. One of the changes that had been presented, that was taken under consideration here as well, was oftentimes when you have a contractor working on a property, we don't officially allow signage indicating where the name of the roofing company is or the general contractor, things like that on that property because it's not their property. We found a way to address that from a matter of public safety and the police, fire, whatever else. If a sign is on the property indicating the contractors that are responsible for anything on that work site, as long as they put the emergency contact information in the event of a situation with the police or fire or anybody else that may not know the permitting information or whatever else, they have the means by doing it, but they have to remove it as soon as they're done with the project. So as soon as that project's done. So that's one of the things we did to allow some of that latitude, that discretionary latitude for contractors specifically as they're working on a project. And that would seem like a reasonable way to address that because they all want to do it anyhow. We just want to stipulate if they're going to do it, they got to have their emergency contact information on there so the police or fire can know to contact if something catches on fire or there's a safety related issue. Some of the other ones, we're looking at, and I think if the board will allow us some latitude to try some of those ideas out, the P and Z board had recommended, that's our goal for this year. Hopefully we can deal with that through the building services manager. So that would be my goal. I appreciate your request to put it on the agenda.
For discussion.
That's fine, that's fine. And we'll try to have some more targeted, and I know you were on the P and Z board during that time. Maybe you and I can meet and just review some of those things that we can accomplish. So.
And it probably would be good to have Kevin involved with some of the businesses, go out and talk to some of them and get some feedback.
Solicit some current perspective on it. Additionally, in that regard, regarding the signage, we have discussed for some time about our goals. We presented some samples of other communities like Mantino that have a very effective directional signage program. Yes, ma'am.
Should we vote on this ordinance and come back to this ordinance?
I thought we were still discussing it, that's fine.
Thank you.
That was a long rabbit trail. We had a motion in a second. Roll call.
Trustee Alston,
Yes.
1717. Horn,
Yes.
Racick,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
and Gray.
Yes.
We'll talk about that later. All right. Number 3.
Thank you, Mayor. One last item. It appears as though, just to update the board on the bond transaction, it appears as though we're going to attempt to close this transaction April 6th. We were able, Baird was able to sell the bonds as the board requested. The bonds are less than $7 million. With the help of Ruben, the mayor, and Daryl, we reviewed the bond purchase agreement, and we did make sure it was under $7 million. Do you want me to read the sources and uses, Mayor, on the record? Yes, sir. Sources and uses of these funds is what the board know. It is less than $7 million. The deposit, the construction fund will be 6.6. The deposit capitalized interest will be $147,185. Underwriter's discount, $138,876. Bond counsel fee, $25,000. Local counsel fee, $15,000. Rating fee, $13,000. Printing fee, $2,000. Rounding amount, $1,806.30. Paying agent, $950, which equals the sources and uses of $6,943,817.55. These are all uses will be taken out of bond proceeds. We intend to close again April 6th, so after the 6th of April, you'll have $6.6 million in your construction fund. There are quite a few documents to be signed by the mayor, clerk Hauser, and also our treasurer. But we do need a motion authorizing the mayor to re-execute the bond purchase agreement and any all ancillary bond documents pertaining to the 2015 general obligation bond issue.
I'll entertain a motion to approve what he just said.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Gray and Horn. Roll call. No discussion, of course.
Trustee Horn,
Yes.
Raisik,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
and Holston,
Yes.
17-18.
Would that be an ordinance or a resolution?
Resolution, Mayor, or a motion. A motion's fine. Just a motion. I don't need a resolution, just a motion so it's on the record.
Well, let's do it as a resolution, so we at least have a reference to it.
We don't have.
We just voted on the,
We made a motion, but we didn't define it as a resolution or an ordinance.
As long as, not an ordinance, resolution or the motion.
And part of the reason, just again to clarify here, in the past, there has been things that have been slipped because they haven't had a document number associated with them. So we're gonna be doing more, where we're trying to put either resolution or ordinance number as appropriate, so at least we have a tracking number.
so what's the resolution?
So doesn't it have to be in resolution form, though?
Not necessarily, Trustee Gonzalez, as long, we can make it a resolution form, as long as it's in the record right now.
Okay.
We'll indicate a resolution, I think we can draft it accordingly.
2015-5.
Yeah, the same thing would hold true if it was in an ordinance format, and it's not either, so it's just, we just have to have at least an agreement index of some sort. Okay.
That's all I have, Aaron.
Old business.
Open for public. No, you're right, okay, I apologize. Give me my notes.
Well, at least I'm not the only one making mistakes today. Trustee Holston, please.
Wait a minute.
I seconded it.
Yeah, we got a first and a second.
It's a roll call.
Yeah, roll call.
So we're all
Well,
making,
motion by yourself.
Right.
Seconded by Horn, roll call, 5.
Everybody.
Okay. Okay.
Resolution 2015 dash.
We're guys.
something in there. Can we get a little closer?
It's the whole Zoom is there, so.
You can just sit next to you.
It's the chair.
Get a hold of his hand.
Trustee Holston, please.
Yes, sir. Just like the park, some of these things take time. A little over a year ago, I was asked by members of the public who own homes in Monee to look into the landlord ordinance due to some of the concerns they had about out-of-state people who own property and allow that property to be misused or run down, therefore affecting the value of their property, as well as potentially increasing the opportunity for crime. I've had first-hand personal experience with that. The house next to me currently has a fox living under it. It's a rental house. I think that's a pest, I'm not sure. We have seen other pests in the area, other animals in the area in homes like this. I had that house, that particular house, when it was vacated, went in with a member of the police department and found drug paraphernalia in that place as well. Other communities in the area have done the same thing in terms of trying to put something together that would help to regulate property that is rented in the community. We have over 100 properties in this community that are being rented. We have landlords who are community residents, have been here a long time, and I don't think present a problem. But people that don't have a face value money because they don't live in or around the area, look at it a little differently. I approached this from the point of view of looking at what other communities did. Janet Blue, excuse me, is here tonight. Janet, if you would stand up. If you don't mind coming forward quickly, because everybody's looking at the clock now. And if you would give us just 2 minutes of the background that you've experienced. Janet moved to Monee a couple of years ago from Aurora, where she was involved with the same ordinance in there and has helped us to author this. And I want to point out that we have met recently with the Gulf Vista residents and got feedback from them and incorporated that into some of the things you see in the program that you have tonight, or the ordinance, that were not ordinance, but the paperwork that we gave you tonight. We've also run this past some of these same owners who asked us to do something along this line to get some feedback from them. We have had feedback from Larry in that he doesn't like it. I understand that, I got that. But no specific feedback other than what I heard tonight, and I'll address that with him before the next meeting. Janet, you got anything you want to add to this?
No, I mean, did you want me to describe?
Just your experience with the landlord ordinance in terms of, as a landlord, what you've experienced with it.
Well, in the beginning I wasn't for the program at all, because it was a lot of time and effort, and I thought it was going to cost me money, and they were asking me for a license fee as well. But when I went into the program, and they ran a training program, the police department and the village ran a training program to really help landlords to know and get to know who is in their property, and give us some really good advice on managing them, maintaining your property, and keeping it to the level, the standards that would be if you lived in them. And that was, to me, one of the biggest pleasant surprises, because I can't see my house in Aurora, and so for me to know that I go there once a year to make sure that it's up to standard, and I did have an inspector go through the house with me. He looked for stuff I didn't even think about, and stuff that would make my tenants safe and secure in the home that they're living in. And the fee was minimal. I think it was like $25. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't about the fee. It was the fact that I did get some training on how to keep my house maintained. I worked with the police department. I can now take that to my insurance company to say, you know, I've gone through the crime-free housing program. I actually just gave that to farmers last week. I'm waiting for them to come back to me on that. So it ended up being a very positive experience. And this is in Aurora, where, you know, there's a huge amount of crime. And but now, since the crime-free program was instigated, you may know that Aurora was one of the murder capitals in the state. And about 3 years into this program, for the first time in their history, they had no murders in that city at all. And so they believe that the crime-free housing program is because landlords are working with the police so that they know who's in their house at any one time. I know who's in my house. I've done a background check on them all. The police department didn't want to see the background checks. They just said, we want to know that you've done that. And I felt really good afterwards. I felt really that I'd done due diligence, and that if something were to happen in the house, then it wouldn't be because I didn't do my part.
Thank you very much, Jen.
You're welcome.
So what I'd like to ask the trustees to do is to review the documentation that you got tonight. We want to have a public hearing, of course, to talk about public, the village attorney needs to review this for any legal issues that need to be reviewed. It is controversial in that nobody likes to have somebody tell them what to do. But on the other hand, again, I believe that the people who own property and live in Monee, at least one trustee in this room owns property and rents it. That's not the issue here. The issue is people that are out of state that buy property just for investment, don't spend a lot of money to fix it up, don't check who's here, who's renting the house, and then we end up with property that's not being treated properly, that's being damaged. We end up with property values of homes that live next to that go down, with residents who are law-abiding citizens having to put up with. And I mentioned this last year, I've had 2 different people run through my yard chasing each other over the last couple of years, renters. And I've had firsthand experience, and I'm very focused on this, and I intend to follow it through to the end. I know there will be opposition, but I believe in the end this is going to be something that's good for the landowners as well as for the residents of Monee.
Can I just offer one other perspective? In my own personal experience in the last month or so too, and I think we all know too, Larry, it goes to the out-of-state homeowners. We know 2 giant corporations have bought up many, many homes in this town. They don't live in this state. We have to protect the people who are moving into these homes as well. I had a lovely young couple move in across the street in the house that I was. That landowner, that property owner never even gave the keys to those young folks. He never showed up. He just accepted their money and they had to move out within a week because they never even got keys to their home. So not only, I believe, having something this in place will protect the village and the residents here, but some very nice people who might be trying to move in as well.
Additionally, part of this is intended to help some of the folks out in Gulf Vista. Even though they own their manufactured homes, the property they live on is considered rental property, and they've got a number of issues that they've been concerned with, so we have met with them several times now, had discussions with them, and got some good feedback from them as well. So I would like to put this on the agenda for discussion and possible vote in the month of April.
And just in regards to that, I want to make sure that when the time is, that it's on there. Now, Chief, I know you were working on another ordinance as well. I want to make sure that the board is refreshed on both of those, so they're both presented and voted on the same night. So, Chief, if you could make sure we have, I know it was presented previously, but if we can make sure we also bring it forward.
One question, clarification. You had mentioned public meeting prior to being part of this.
Well, and we could just do, we could have.
I don't see the need for a public meeting. I think I'm sure Larry will be there regardless, and there will be other people, and I encourage people to come. Again, we want people's input on this. This is nothing that we did overnight. We've been working on this since February of last year.
I believe the preparation that the chief had for the ordinance that he had worked with Larry on, we compiled some things from other areas. And the one you have thus far, even though it's not in ordinance format, can we make that available here at the Village Hall? Is that okay for both of those to be reviewed? So
From my perspective, sure.
They can look it over and leave their comments for recommendations of whatever sort. And here again, just like we did on various other things, when people are looking through these things and they agree or disagree, understand the goal is to provide a solution, a remedy to some of the things that we've encountered. I understand that there may be a nuance on the wording or the implementation or things like that. This is not an easy task, and you're going to take, you're going to have a target on your back because of some of it from some people. The reality is, whatever the concerns are that anyone from the public may have regarding this, please be specific in your recommendations for things that you see that might need to be changed. Instead of just saying, I don't like this, we need direction on how to correct it, if that's the case. If there's something being presented, give us time to work with those recommendations so that we can overcome those. I know, Larry, you brought up some things about the, a few things. Larry, you and I'm sorry to Larry doesn't, even some issues on the nuances of who owns a home, if it's in a trust or an estate or something like that, technically the person living there is not the owner. So we have to be careful about the wording and the legal parsing of those things because those are separate persons by legal definition. So we want to make sure that we incorporate those so we don't get into that little issue as well. So that being said, you had another comment on this?
So I had a question. Now this, the title of this is, it seems to be a misnomer because it seems more of less crime-free housing program than a owner maintenance program. Is there a portion in here, did I miss that, about the crime-free housing portion? Are we doing?
I think that the crime-free label probably more applies to what the chief has.
Okay.
And this has more to do with, to try to put the two together. This one, the one the chief has is more nuisance, crime-free related. This is more of maintenance and responsibility of ownership for a business.
It certainly has maintenance, but it also has education. How we educate the landowners on how they should do the background checks. That's crime-free. How they make sure that they maintain the properties before, after, so that they meet codes, and certainly that is in codes. But rental property seems to slip all the time. And people are allowed to come and go, and we can have 3 different renters in 1 year. Well, under this program, all 3 would be subject to review. Currently, once you've had your initial inspection, as you know, and it's done, you're done. If the property begins to deteriorate, there's no safeguard measure to make sure that it's being taken care of, because the village doesn't know when people move in. They just move in. Under this program, that would be changed. And if you read through the whole thing, it's very specific about the powers and duties of the housing inspectors, of the landowner. It spells out who has what responsibilities. And this is not something brand new. This is being used in villages and communities all over Chicagoland area. We have 6 different villages that we looked at in putting this together. And this even helps them by showing them what they can write in terms of an agreement that helps the landlord to get out of the agreement if the person renting the property doesn't live up to their part of it and starts doing things that are illegal. So this is intended to help the landowner, but also help the renter, and also help the people who live next door.
Okay. So we will have both of those available at the Village Hall window for review and comments. Please, if you have comments regarding any of these, put it in writing so that we can digest those recommendations, whatever they may be. And at either the first or the second meeting in April, we will put both of those up for a vote with considerations for the changes as recommended.
Why are we no longer having a public hearing on this?
Well, we're addressing that as we go. So the public hearing is making it publicly available and allowing people, we're talking about it now, but we're giving people the opportunity, we're giving them time to review the details.
Wasn't it at that one board meeting you specifically said that we were gonna have a public meeting on this, public hearing?
I didn't say a public hearing, I said.
It's not usually Larry brought it up. And by law, doesn't that mean we have to have a public hearing on this? I mean, by putting out the public's input and actually put it right, we need to have a public hearing on this, because this is affecting a lot of people in town.
Okay, if you want to have a public hearing on it,
Yes.
if you actually want to have a special meeting, we can do that. But there again, even if we're going to do that, and we're going to keep it orderly, it's important for people to review the thoughts, put them in writing, just like if you're having an IDOT hearing for land acquisition or any of those other things, there's a formality that you follow, and that has to do with preferably submitting your concerns and questions in writing. You can come make your oral presentations as well, but in order for that to be digested and taken into consideration, it helps to have some of that information provided. If you all want to have a special meeting to address this.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
What I would suggest is maybe the last meeting of April, we have a meeting of the whole 1 hour before the village board meeting. That will give us the public hearing.
Or we can have it in the first meeting in April, that way it gives us time to adjust if necessary before the last meeting in April.
Do that, that's April 8th.
Is that fair?
Because that way, you get the input from the board and the
That's
public,
fine.
you can amend it for the next
Sure.
meeting.
That's fine.
So let's plan on having a special meeting.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 things that we could discuss at a meeting. One would be this, the other one is a sign ordinance.
Sure.
We could solicit suggestions and comments for that.
We might want to make it
I think an hour.
an hour before.
Yeah.
Can everybody make it at 5:30 on April 8th?
That's tough.
Can you make it,
6 o'clock is.
And here's the, if the public hearing part of that, or the special meeting, whatever runs long, it's not a big deal. All we do is simply push our start time for the regular meeting back.
Yeah, I'm good with 6.
6 o'clock, okay for everybody? April 8th, 6 o'clock. Okay. Anything else?
That's all I have, sir, thank you.
Open to the public, non-agenda items. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Come to the podium, give your name and address, please. Okay, no takers. We have nothing for executive session. We're on a roll on that one, guys. No action regarding that. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. The time is now 9 o'clock.
I'll entertain that motion.
Second. So with that, Raisik and Holston, roll call please.
Trustee Raisin,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Gray,
yes?
Holston, and Horn.